Let's get started with our first victim, Basil 1 or Basil the First. A man was hunting in the wild when he spotted a massive red deer. He began chasing it on horseback until suddenly the deer turned to face him.
No.
Stag charged. One of its massive antlers caught in the man's belt, pulling him down straight from the saddle. The powerful but frightened animal bolted into the dense forest, dragging the man violently across rough terrains. Now, this was no ordinary man. He was the emperor of Byzantine Empire, Basil I, or more famously known as Basil the Macedonian. We all love the story of a simple boy from a poor peasant family rising to become a king. This is exactly how Basil's life unfolded, but it was far from simple or straightforward. To seize the imperial throne, Basil orchestrated several cunning schemes, including the murder of the hand that fed him, the previous emperor Michael III, ultimately putting him on the throne in 867 AD. In his final years, Basil suffered from extreme paranoia. This was largely due to the death of his eldest and favorite son, Constantine, in 879 AD, after which he began to suspect everyone around him. I hope you listen carefully because this is important for what happens next. The hunting incident took place sometime in August of 886 AD. The stag dragged Basil for 16 miles before he was finally rescued by one of his attendants. But in that moment of pain and confusion, Basil's lifelong paranoia exploded. Seeing a man standing over him with a blade in his hand, he immediately believed it was an assassination attempt. Instead of rewarding the attendant, the emperor ordered his execution. Poor fella. Basil suffered severe injuries and was taken back to the palace, where he later died from infection and internal bleeding. Conquered an empire just to be defeated by a deer. What a bizarre world that we live in. The next victim is Hans Steininger. It is 28th of September 1567. A massive fire breaks out near the town hall of a small town. In an era of wooden houses and narrow streets, the fire swept through the town. Panic takes over. People scatter like ants, creating chaos as some try to flee, while others try to fight the flames with whatever they have. Like any sudden disaster, the scene is overwhelming. Inside the town hall, a man wakes to the sound of screams. Startled, he immediately jumps out of bed to help the people evacuate safely. This man is Hans Steininger, the mayor of Braunau am Inn, a quiet town in present-day Austria, the same town that gave the world its greatest villain. Hans is highly respected and well-liked for his strong leadership. In fact, he has been elected mayor 6 consecutive times. But beyond his leadership, one feature makes him truly stand out: his legendary beard. It stretched over 4.5 feet, flowing past his chest and reached well beneath his knees. The beard forms a long strand that splits into 2 thin ends. To manage it, he usually rolls it up and tucks it into a pouch on his clothing. On the night of the fire, in the rush to save his people, Hans neglects his routine. He forgets to secure his legendary beard in his pouch. As he rushes down the stairs of the town hall, he makes one fatal mistake. He steps on his own dangling beard. The sudden pull jerks his head forward. He loses his balance and falls. He crashes head first down the stairs, snapping his neck on impact and dying instantly. The very thing that made him unique and admired ultimately led to his death. He was killed not by the fire, but his greatest pride. By the way, his beard is well preserved in the town museum, if you ever want to see it. The next victim, Collier Brothers. It is March 9th, 1947. A man has just entered a house. From the inside, one might mistake it for a junkyard. The house is filled with an astonishing number of possessions. Tens of thousands of books and newspapers, 14 pianos and other musical instruments, chases of Model T Ford, bicycles, an early X-ray machine, and even human organs in jars. The man carries food in his hand, carefully taking one step at a time through narrow tunnels formed by piles of clutter. But with one misstep, he trips on a booby trap. This triggered a cascade of heavy junk to collapse onto him, crushing him and leading to his tragic demise by suffocation. This man was Langley Wakeman Collier, a man who lived and grew up in that very house. It was a 4-story brownstone at 2078 Fifth Avenue in Harlem, New York City. Langley held a degree in engineering and was a talented concert pianist. His mother was a former opera singer, and his father was a well-respected gynecologist. Well, their professions explain some of the items found inside the house, at least to a certain degree. After both of his parents passed away, Langley gradually cut himself off from the outside world. He lived in complete darkness, without central heating and even running water. But if you think the story ends with Langley's death,
wait a minute!
There is more. One person is still missing. You see, Langley had an older brother, Homer Lust Collier, a former lawyer who lived in the same house. Homer suffered a stroke in 1933, which left him completely blind and paralyzed, and Langley became his sole caretaker. Fearing burglary and theft, Langley began setting up various traps, one of which ultimately took his own life. After Langley's death on March 9th, Homer, completely dependent on him, was left helpless. He could not reach his brother or find food. Over the next 12 days, Homer slowly starved to death in a very horrific way, lying just 10 feet away from his brother's disintegrating body. When the police later searched their house, they discovered nearly 140 tons of clutter inside. Today, the term Collier Mansion is sometimes used to describe dangerously cluttered homes. Next and the final one would be Milo of Croton. He carried a newborn calf on his shoulders every single day. As the calf grew into a full-sized bull, his strength grew with it. Milo of Croton was the first person to ever practice progressive overload training, which gave him the physique of a colossal titan. This legendary man lived in the 6th century BC in the Greek colony of Croton, located in modern-day Italy. He is said to have been the strongest man in all of ancient Greece, a 6-time champion of the ancient Olympic Games. He also dominated the Pythian, Isthmian, and Nemean Games for a total of over 30 major victories. Long after his competitive prime, sometime between 510 and 511 BC, while walking alone in a remote forest near Croton, Milo came across a large old oak tree that was already partially split. Wedges were driven into the crack to keep the wood apart. Seeing the thick and magnificent tree, Milo just couldn't keep it to himself. He decided to finish the job with his bare hands, and also to prove that throughout heaven and earth, he alone is the honored one. He thrusted his fingers deep into the crack and began to pull the trunk apart. Don't get the wrong idea, I know it sounds weird. Suddenly, the wedges slipped out. The wood snapped shut with a tremendous force, clamping down on his hands and trapping Milo in place. He pulled, kicked, strained with all his might, but the tree would not budge. And then he heard something, the crunching of leaves, low growls. 1, 2, a pack of wolves surrounded him. The man who could easily overpower a bull could not even lift his hands to defend himself. He could not escape his fate and was ultimately devoured where he stood. A cruel and ironic death for the once strongest man in Greece. Now you might wonder if he was all alone and was eaten by the wolves. How do we know of this legend? Well, don't ask me. I'm sure there must be someone watching all of this.